Another day.
Another day.
Let's get into it.
All right. Well, I have my question, but today we're going to be talking about how this time of year, the holiday season specifically, can be the most challenging for leaders. And maybe you feel like that. And if so, we're talking to you. So my question to get us started is, Taylor, are you Cindy Lou Who or are you the Grinch?
That's great. We were just talking about the Grinch.
I know.
I'm definitely the Grinch for sure. Yeah, it's challenging, like I struggle. Yeah, the holidays are tough, I mean, I love the holidays. I'm grateful for the time. I very much want to be present with people that I care about and be intentional about this time of year. It also makes me just unbelievably frustrated how slow things move. And, the often inability to get things done with other people between here in the States, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, or Thanksgiving and the New Year, right? Like we lose a month. And yeah, that's frustrating. And it's frustrating because, and this is on topic for what we'll talk about today, but the stakes are really high. Like from a founder's perspective, I don't want to flatline for a month. I don't want to not build connections. I don't want to not move the needle. I don't want to, because what happens now sets us up for the first quarter, and it's things we've been working on through the summer and into the fall. And and it's so this lag, it's not just about me, or I'd say it's primarily not about me. It's about my responsibility for others. And if we can't execute, then that has very real consequences, and it's stressful. And so it makes me frustrated. So I'm definitely the Grinch. I've always been that way. I just want to work. Again, not that I'm insensitive to what the holidays mean. And I think it is a nice time for a reset and to take a beat and, spend time with family. But this 6-week period where people seem to can't be bothered with work is very frustrating.
Yeah. I didn't know what you were going to answer because you actually really love Christmas. I am like the Grinch to the point where I even hate Christmas music. It's growing on me after how many ever years I've been alive. But it's I really can't do some of the holiday stuff. I'm just and I have kids. So, there's a lot of things, but Elf on the Shelf, whoever created that bullshit needs to just...
Yeah, that feels excessive. Who has time for the elf, man?
I was I've had to struggle to not be the Pinterest mom because I really actually am a very creative person. And we're watching that. I'll talk about it again. We're watching that Martha documentary. And I'm like, Jesse's like, oh, you're totally Martha. I resonated so much because I love aesthetically pleasing things. I'm like, yes, do it well. But there's just something about the holidays that just feels heavy. And I think it's because, I've always had kids. My whole adult life, I've always had kids. So receiving is not it's a giving season, right? You're just giving more and more and more. And I think one of the biggest problems with that as leaders is we don't give for the right reasons. And we've talked a little bit about this before for nice versus kind. And I think we just look at happiness. And I have a real frustration with happiness. I think happiness is a choice. I like the word joy. Joy is a choice. But a lot of times we tell ourselves that it's the monetary achievements that actually make us happy, when we just have a tendency to focus on the wrong things. And then we're jumping through all of these hoops and we're people pleasing, which if you've been listening for any amount of time, you know that I hate people pleasing because it creates resentment. And so we're trying to make, specifically in our teams as well, there's the bonuses, the time off, that like it just compounds. And my question is, does it get us to where we want to go? Does it get our team to where we want to go? Great. Make your team happy, value your team. We do a lot to value the team, but are we valuing them in a way that moves the needle? And I should have looked up the statistics. I was reading a statistic a couple days ago that was talking about the turkeys. You know, like everybody bitches about the turkeys that the company gives, like thanks for the ham.
No,
like,
right.
Oswald kind of Christmas moment, right? Like, we got a turkey, not the bonus. And it's insane. Like if you think of a company, an organization that has bought, say they have 2,000 employees, well, the numbers are crazy. If you think about how much they spent on the turkeys, you're like, that's a shit ton of money. Like maybe the turkey, but like my family's European. We don't freaking eat turkey. So, you know, like, does it actually move the needle, or are we just literally grinding away and making things more complicated in the wrong direction? And then everyone's left resentful, right? And I'm like, there's got to be an upgrade, as Taylor likes to say. What an opportunity, right? Like, that's like, I'm like, there's an opportunity here to do better and to do things in the right direction. But we just get so caught up in what has to be done and there's the to-do list for a leader, or I guess for myself as a leader, is haunting. It drowns me during this time. I'm like, I got to do the kids and the team and it's not even just the gifts. It's all the things that go along with it. So I don't know. I feel like we've found that there's a bigger opportunity here to value people in the right direction, to focus on the right things. But is there a way to enjoy the holiday season? Because everybody always remembers their Grinch for being the grumpy guy. No one actually like remembers him for being the guy who like turns around and actually embraces Christmas at the end. And so like as leaders, can we like actually connect our hearts and do the right things that give us enjoyment, allow us to move the needle, allow us to do that? Or like, are we just going to continue to get stuck and hate the holidays forever? Because we're talking to the people who are like, I could go without, right? So give me a little bit of what that's been like for you, Taylor. Like, where do you see the biggest challenge? And then let's hop into the opportunity of what we can change to actually enjoy this season. So let's start there.
The challenge is trying to find or striking the balance of productivity and rest. I think, you know, from my perspective is what does that look like? And I think there's a few angles here. One is I think it looks different depending on where you're at in the organization. And that's okay. You and I were talking about this offline. It was like, you know, it's all well and good to have this time off and to have this time to you know, take a rest or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that ultimately the responsibility still falls on somebody to move things forward, right? Like somebody has to set us up for success next season. Or there's very real consequences. The people that are resting don't get paid, right? Like there's not, and so it's a struggle for me again. Like, you know, I think that there is, the challenge is what is that supposed to look like? You know, I don't think that the answer is we just bury our heads in work and we pretend like it's not happening. I've done that. I don't think that that's not fruitful. But also again, this kind of inability or lack of awareness of the importance of this time period, I think only serves to add more stress down the road. Mm-hmm. So we're just deferring stress. We're going to pretend like it doesn't matter now. The fact of the matter is that somebody has to be working. Yeah. Because you're not, you know, a business can't take a month off. And so the opportunity there, I think, is to really think about like, what does it look like to navigate this time period in a way that honors everybody's commitment. Like I don't think that anyone would, if you came to your team and you were like, hey, this is going to be a pretty light month. We have Thanksgiving, and then, we're going to like dick around for a couple of weeks, and then that's going to be Christmas, and you're going to take that off. And then, we got the new year. But when you come back, like shit's going to hit the fan because we haven't done anything. Right. Mm-hmm. And all the things we put on the back burner, we've either lost or we're going to have to scramble to figure out how to like get that back or whatever the scenario is for this particular industry. I don't think anybody would be like, yeah, sign me up. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's like a deferred stress so I think that's just an upgrade where we actually invite people into the process of what does it look like? What do people need during this time period? What does rest actually look like? How do they want to connect with their families? You and I have talked about this. It's like, I don't want a week off. Like I want to be strategic. I want to connect with my family. If people are coming to visit, like I want to be present, but rest looks different for me than it does for somebody else. So I think there's some questions to be asked there, and then invite them into the process that helps them see like, hey, these are very real initiatives. And this is how you can show up in alignment with what rest looks like. Like I want to honor that. And I want to make sure to facilitate that rest as best as possible, but also like, we're not just going to be on autopilot. And again, like the question we posed at the onset was, or the scenario we posed is this is a really challenging time for leaders because ultimately that falls on the leader's shoulders. And they're the ones that when everybody else goes home and they have to continue to move the needle, right? They're the ones responsible for forward progress. They're the ones responsible for what it looks like in Q1 of next year when everybody's wondering what the hell they're supposed to be working on, or what are the projects that are coming to fruition, or what are our goals? Well, those goals got started, now, right? They got started a long time ago. So yeah, I'm still trying to find that balance. It's hard. It's hard to know what that's supposed to look like. And I think a lot of leaders struggle with that. And the default is that we just give people what they're asking for. And again, I'm not advocating that time off is not important or not deserved, but I think that there's maybe just more like an opportunity for language that brings people into the conversation or provides more transparency, as part of that, to say like, hey, these are the things that need to happen. Right. And like, somebody's got to do it. So I don't know, what's the opportunity side of things does that resonate? Because it's something, honestly, like I'm grappling with in real time. I feel like every season I get maybe marginally better at it, and then I'll get grumpy about it, and then I'll like back off of that. But it always inevitably is like a massively busy time. I've never, like, somebody please, whoever's listening, like if this is a slow time for you, like what are you doing? Tell me, I want to know, because I've never been in that place. Like it is always, like you said, like it's all the things, right? Like it feels like it, and then and then into the new year is always a massive time period. Some of that's because I've been in the health and wellness space, so that's a peak. But in leadership and other things, it always just feels like there's a culmination. So, what's the opportunity from your perspective?
Well, I think like I'm sitting here thinking about people who are slow, and honestly, the winter seasons for two of our businesses, service-based businesses in Colorado, are really slow because of the snow. Like people just don't want you in their house when it's snowing. And that's actually taken on a whole different challenge, because then you're trying to keep your people busy. And like, we work with a catering company that their slow season, because they're more in the event space, like music event space, it's really slow during this time as well, right? Like everything stops because of the weather in this region. And so, but it proposes a different challenge because it's seasonal work, right? And like now you have a season that is very expensive for people and they don't have the revenue. So now they're looking to you to create a different opportunity. And as leaders, I think we have to be diligent about that and understand the season that we're in. I talk about this to nausea because it's something that's really important to me, is understanding the season that we're in. And I think to your point of, I have done that. I've just been like relentlessly pissed off in the holiday season because I'm like, come on, like you can't get people to write you back. And people are like, oh, you get all the, the email things that are, oh, I'm out for this season. And I'm like, good Lord, can we just like get to the next thing? And you just grind twice as hard because you're doing work that's not going anywhere. And that to me is really frustrating. So I think one of the opportunities is to understand the season you're in your business. Is your business seasonal? And then how is it seasonal? Are you busier during this time? Are you not busy? Are you more profitable during this time? Are you less profitable? And then understand the season you're in the culture, in your world, and your family, right? It changes depending on your circumstances. And I think all of those things need to be considered. But I think as leaders, or at least I know you and I have done this, I have tried to make everybody happy. Everybody wants the bonus. Everybody wants the raise. Like this is also the season for businesses that we're planning for next year. And so we have to look at people's revenue and income and compensation at the end of the year and give them, new plans. And so as a leader, those are all the things that stack up. And I think right now where we're sitting, right before Thanksgiving, if you haven't planned well for this season, you're already too late. And so the opportunity is to focus on what matters and what is most important and what is actually going to be able to value yourself. And something that I have been big on this year, and you're always big on this because you're really good at this, you're better at this than I am, is no is a full sentence. And no is a full statement. And I think that like understanding why and what is best for you and for the business, and then setting the boundaries and inviting, like you're saying, inviting people into that process. I think a lot of times at the top, we're just like, no, or we're just like, what's the language I'm looking for? We tell people that they need to hit quotas. And we give people these goals, but we don't help them understand and invite them into the process of why they matter and how they matter for them. We don't build that bridge of how they matter. And what I mean by that is we're like, oh, you need to hit this quota because it's good for you. It's good for the business, yes, but actually gets you to your bonus, right? We don't connect people. We're actually dealing with an organization that struggles with that right now. And like they're losing people because of that challenge. And all they need to do is be transparent about how the bonus works. That's literally the missing link that we've uncovered. If they would just give the people the understanding and the knowledge to understand this equals this, they would keep their people. Simple as that. But I think a lot of times we just kind of try to we hold our cards to our chest because we don't want to set people up for failure. I've also casted a vision that was truly a vision that it was a startup and it fell flat. We didn't hit those goals and we had a mass exodus because we said we were going to do this thing. Nobody actually showed up. And instead of training my team and walking them through the process of why it didn't work, I just took the whole failure on myself that I was the bad leader. And eventually people left because I was taking the wrong level of responsibility. And so how do we invite people into the process and then also have clear boundaries of where it's a yes is yes and no is no, but they have an understanding for that, right? Like when we have a strong culture, that's what it actually breeds. We understand the seasonalities that we're in, the season that we're in, and the seasonality of the business. We understand where the boundaries are. And most importantly, they understand how to show up in success. And I think nobody really, I don't know, maybe sales teams talk more about this, but I would say a very small amount of organizations and people in organizations talk about what we do today is going to impact our bottom line in 3 months. And most industries, unless you're like living it up in the Valentine's Day world, I guess it could work for you. But most industries have a slow season between January and February in the United States. And I think that's because everybody's lost their minds during the holidays. And I think that personal connection for our employees, that personal connection is really, really important for our teams. I think we need to spend more time there. And then if we had that personal connection and we were building that, then we know how people are going to be valued. We know if they want a turkey. We know if they want a bonus. We know if they want the time off. And I think it's hard, the bigger your organization is, the more challenging that connection can be, because then we have to do everything the same, right? And so how do we build a structure that allows us to be agile and value people in a way that it counts and give them choice in that process? And I think a lot of people just don't know how to do that. And so that's something that I know you and I are really passionate about, is bringing people creative ways and creative solutions to value their team and understand their team and what actually moves the needle, so that we can all stay focused. And at the end of the day, it's ownership, right? How do we build a culture, or let's build a culture that is owner minded, it's owner focused, so that our employees can feel great about success and failure, and they can be connected to that process. And they can either say, I want to take the time off, like you're saying, like, I want to take the time off, I want to spend that time, and I'm okay with having a slower quarter next quarter. I'm okay with seeing those numbers drop. And then as a leader, you get to make a decision of who's right for your organization, so that people aren't uncomfortable. Because when our values don't align, it just gets uncomfortable. And then there's blame and shame. But if we can all be on the same page and have a clear understanding of what we're all working towards, I think that's where life happens. I know for you and I, that's where we've seen the most benefit in our organizations, is just being honest with people and giving them the full vision of what's possible and connecting them to the seasons and the value and all of those things. Don't you think? Like, I know it's challenge. Those things all take time as a leader, but I think it starts with that transparency and honesty and being clear on your own boundaries, where you can show up in a healthy way, not in a, I'm going to make everybody happy. False responsibility, that's my challenge for everyone. False responsibility has to die. Because if I say yes to this and I'm going to be resentful of you, that's false responsibility. And it's not getting you where you want to go. And you'll lose people, you'll be pissed off, and you won't hit your numbers. You won't do the things you want to do, because you're not allowing them to take ownership in your organization, which kills their confidence and pisses you off. So I want to encourage everyone to just take a second and think about, where are you falsely taking responsibility for something that's not actually yours? Where are you trying to make someone happy? It's just not your job. It's their job. They need to make themselves happy, and you can show up in support of that. But where is that before we jump into the full swing of the holidays? Where can you just get ahead of those places you just people please to make people happy, and you take too much responsibility? So I would say, if for me, it started there, and that squashes people pleasing and gets us clear on what really matters to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things we've talked about on previous episodes is being proactive versus reactive, and that's kind of what comes to mind here. Is I think a lot of the reason that it's really disruptive, and specifically from a leadership perspective, we feel more stress, is that it's really reactive, right? Mm-hmm. We know that people are gonna be, maybe it's less about the actions that people are taking in terms of their time away or their engagement, and more about being proactive in how we think about this time period and like set everyone up for success, and we did this with one of our companies, is like, things were everybody's kind of running in different directions. And we're like, well, the problem is that we're just not like connecting with a strategy consistently. So it's like, let's set up, that every Friday morning, like if we want different results, we have to do something different. And So let's set up dedicated time. Let's connect. Let's act like a team, and let's develop a strategy that's going to carry us through this season and into next year. If we want to see very real results next year, then that planning starts now. We need to know what we're running at. And like you said, I think that lag comes from the fact that we've been really reactive during this time period and not really gotten anything done and feel like we're behind the eight ball. And then that rolls into January, and it's like February before we come out of it. And we're pissed off at the results we're getting for the actions we're not taking to change our circumstances. Right. And it's like I always say, like, we don't get to be mad at the outcome for the effort that we didn't put in. And I think there is an opportunity there. I mean, specifically, with the communication piece, to to invite people in, and I think be honest. Like, just be like, hey, like this time period really matters. Like, if it does for your organization, you need to say that. And from a leader's perspective, so much of that stress comes from feeling like you have to carry the weight of those responsibilities, or carry the weight. And that's fair. I mean, there is a very real weight to leadership, but also it doesn't mean that can't come with support, or that it should be absent of support. And I think transparency is a big part of that, right? I think so often, if you ask people, again, like, what do you want to take it super easy now, or do you want us to all be really stressed out in February? They'd be like, no, like, how can I show up now in alignment with my goals? Yes, I'm going to take this time for my family. Yes, I'm going to do this, but also, like, I still want to contribute, right? I still want to be a part. Like, I don't want to be, so if you were like, hey, like, if we don't close these 2 clients by the end of the year, like, there's real consequences. And not shouldering all that as a leader and communicating in a way that, again, doesn't burden people that aren't supposed to be burdened, but also invites them into a conversation that sets them up for success, right? Like, what can they do to contribute so that their lives are better next year? And I think that there is an opportunity there for balance, or to strike a balance that allows people that space and time, which is important, but also helps them recognize that it is, it feels different when you are, when the weight is on your shoulders, like, from a leader's perspective, you just don't get that luxury. And I don't think, and that's not a bad thing, but I don't think, again, it's not fair to be frustrated about that, or to be stressed about it, when we haven't taken action to change the culture around how we talk about this time period, And so, there's an upgrade there for sure. And I think a lot of it is with communication. A lot of it is with expectation setting. One of the things I talk about a lot is expectation mapping, right? Like, the reason people get frustrated, or we get frustrated, is because expectations aren't aligned with actual outcomes, right? So we imagine something's going to play out in a particular way, and then when it doesn't, we get frustrated. Well, the easiest way to right the ship there is just to go ahead and think about how it's actually going to go down, right? So don't imagine a world where maybe you're running at 75%. Okay, great. What can we do with 75%? Right? Mm-hmm. If people have expressed that this time's important and they're going to be out for 2 weeks, and they're going to be, okay, fine. Right? I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. We need to align expectations and align our goals with what's realistic, and the real kind of, mechanisms of what's going on in the organization. And I think, that's where, like, my frustration comes in. I know, because I so often don't align my expectations with other people's workflow, and then I get frustrated. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, I'm working, and other people aren't, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. Again, I'm making the point that, like, that's the only reason I'm frustrated is it's misaligned expectations. I've decided that it's going to go down one way, and in all actuality, it was never going to happen that way. So if I just get ahead of it and control what I can control, And that's like for us, like this is strategy time, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, great. If you're not going to be able to get a hold of people for the next few weeks, or people are going to be slow, great, right? That means probably like maybe your calendar is a little more open. Like maybe you don't quite as, have quite as many meetings. Plan, right? Get ahead of it. What are you putting in place? What's the next 6 months look like? Again, invite people in to that. That's work that people can do like offline too, right? If we don't have as many Zoom calls, invite people into those strategic conversations, right? Ask for their input, their opinions, lighten that load, and distribute that responsibility, and that ownership, like you were saying, across multiple people. I think, I think there's a massive opportunity there, and it just doesn't have to be. I just think we've evolved too. The modern workplace has just evolved. This time period hasn't caught up with the modern work environment. I
Mhm.
think is maybe, and I didn't think that statement through, so maybe I'll catch hell for it. But
What do you?
it's
I like that. I love when you don't think things fully through because you're really good at that.
I hate to be spontaneous.
I know. So break that down for me, like in real time. Like, what is that? What do you mean by that? Because I think I agree, but I don't know if it's in the same way that
Yeah.
you're saying it. So break that down. What do you mean by that? What are you saying?
I mean, I think people's expectations around work integration into their lives is different. And again, I'm not saying that people should work all the time. Like you should definitely have dedicated time off, but I also think these extended holiday breaks are not really in alignment with how the modern workforce thinks about integrating work into their life. Like I think more people are super fine with like going to see family and working for a couple hours in the morning and then taking the times in which people are contributing. And I think the times when people are engaged, meaning like they're in a different environment, they've had more space, they got more downtime, like they actually might be feeling really fired up and they might like have great ideas. And so maybe they want to work during that time, right? Maybe they want to contribute. Maybe they, and that's where we have to ask, right? So again, I'm not saying that like you're working all the time, because that's a whole nother thing. Is like unlimited time off becomes you're always working. Like I get that that's a problem, and I don't think that is a fair expectation of the workforce. But I also think we have not evolved. We're stuck in the like, Griswold family Christmas, like he leaves for 10 days over the Christmas holiday and, doesn't come back to the new year in his like corporate job. And I don't know that is in alignment with just how people think about their work and how that integrates into their life. And I'm not even talking at like the leadership level. Like you and I do that, that doesn't even cross my mind. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Like whatever. I recognize that's not the same for everyone in an organization, but I still think those expectations have changed. I think so. Again, there's the conversation, there's the communication piece. It's like, hey, like these are our objectives, these are our goals. We have very real things that we need to accomplish this month, December. What would you what would you like? What does that look like for you? I'd love your support. Let's outline that. What are your goals for this holiday season? What does engagement look like? Where would you like to contribute? And I think what we have found is that the answer is that they want to contribute more than you think they do. Right? They're like, oh yeah, like I'm going back to see my folks, but like after like a day, I get antsy, and I don't want to like sit around and talk to my parents for 10 hours a day. So I'm happy to like jump on. Let's talk about it. I'm free. Like there's just a fluidity there that I don't think we're really factoring in fully. And that might not be the case for everyone, but yeah, that's what comes to mind. I haven't fully fleshed that out. I'm going to think more about that.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I think that like there's a lot of things that have changed in the last decade, and we're still interacting with the holidays and in a, very prehistoric way. I think
how dare you refer to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation as prehistoric?
it's so I really hate that movie. I can't with like all
You're
this.
the worst. We're gonna take this offline. I can't with you right now.
I'm like, oh, I hate everything about all of this. But I think I think the opportunity there too is again like the connection that we have with our team, but also helping your team understand what true growth looks like, because true love and being truly kind and caring for people is to help them understand how they can achieve more while with planning, right? Like with actually thinking about this holiday in a very intentional way and being intentional with helping them understand what matters to them. And then then it helps us as leaders set better expectations, right? Then we actually get to set expectations for ourselves and for our team. But I think a lot of times we just aren't asking the right questions, and our teams don't have access to break those things down. Like I think we say yes because we're obligated to say yes. And we show up in the way that we show up because we're obligated to do that. Right. And there's all of these like silent obligations that we're just showing up and doing because it's tradition. And I want to challenge tradition if it's not productive for you. I want to challenge the way that we show up in our teams and ask better questions and give people resources. Like we have one of my favorite things that we do is we have an end of year wrap up, and it is the most simple exercise that we literally give our clients to work through, but it's literally everybody's favorite. Like I have people who start asking for it who we haven't worked with consistently in years, and they come back for that every single year, and they want to go through that with us and bring it to their teams every single year, because it's just simple questions that help us reflect on what worked and what didn't, and help us unpack those things so that we can set ourselves up for success. And I would agree completely with what you're saying is can we do it in a different way? Because our world is different, because we have things like Zoom, because it's easier to travel. There's all of these different things that have continued to innovate. What does innovation during the holidays look like so that we can do more together? What would it look like to actually rethink how we do this season so that everyone can enjoy it? And especially from leaders, it comes from the top down, right? So if you're overworking, like there's just different expectations. I think that's the most challenging part of how you and I work is we've seen in our team, they feel a guilt because they take time off. We've actually had that reflected. So if you're a leader that's kind of a Grinch during the holidays, you're like, the buck stops at me. I don't get to go take time off. Like that must be nice for you, but that's not my story because I am the leader and I've chose that. So here I am. And I think we've had to sit down and be honest with ourselves, use the exercise of expectation mapping. But it's like, we did choose this and we have an opportunity to show up and do it better together and actually feel good about being able to work. And like you said, like, I love this season because we get to plan, and because I feel my best when I am ready to go January 1, just like I would be August 1. I feel the best that I can feel when I have a plan for the next year. And I have stopped looking at it as this like huge chasm, right? Like I think there's an opportunity to be like, yes, January 1. Also, it's just another start of a month. Like let's take the like extremes out of it because it doesn't serve us anymore. And so I don't know. I really love challenging the norms. Not that I'm like super great at doing this holiday season well. Or like I get better and better, but I think I have learned to love the downtime so that I can feel prepared and so that I can feel more connected to my team and so that I can understand what matters most. Like it just gives us time and space and a reason to ask the bigger questions because everyone's thinking about the new year. And a lot of times when they're in like the hustle and bustle of what's already planned, if I like try to ask them those questions, they're like, yes, I know, blah, 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 right? Like it's not as intentional of a time and space. And I think that's what could make this year powerful, or like this season powerful, is to just stop and ask the questions and give them the tools and give them space and time. They have space and time. So utilize that so that we can be better together. And if we have those questions, if we have those conversations, we can enjoy this season. And I think that's the opportunity. Like it gives us a reason to be intentional and plan in a different way. So, yeah, maybe you and I can like actually finish the movie of The Grinch and enjoy the holidays and not just be like the grumpy person that's trying to ruin Christmas.
That's a good goal. I would love, that's a great one for both of us. Well, if you need support, understanding what this looks and feels like within your team, if you want to take advantage of the end of year wrap up, like you said, this is an amazing, super impactful exercise that we do with lots of teams every year at end of December, into early Q1 of next year. And it's a great chance just to reflect, reframe, and get strategic about what the path ahead looks like to get everybody on the same page. If that sounds like that would be a productive exercise, would love to talk to you about that. You can reach us at impactinitiative.network. You can contact us there. Let us know how we can help. And again, this time period can be, it's great, but it's also super challenging. I think it comes with a lot of weight and it comes with a lot of stress inherently. And I think that there are lots of opportunities and upgrades for how we can navigate this and actually come out the other side feeling better, being more productive, accomplishing more, and really setting our sights on the year ahead, feeling like we've been proactive and not reactive, and like we're not starting the year putting out fires. So again, reach us at impactinitiative.network. We'd love to connect. We'll see you next time on Impact Minded.